Hi everybody, today's special guest is Paul Jones. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's not as sunny as it has been in South Shields. Whereabouts are you at the moment?
I'm back in Morpeth in Northumberland, and it's grey and overcast and blowing a gale here. But apart from that, it's all right.
Yeah, a bit normal than for Northumberland.
Uh, yeah, okay.
Well,
Nothing rude about it.
we should talk about the fact that you have just recently returned home from a spell in Australia, haven't you? How long were you out there for?
Yeah, I was in Western Australia for about 6 years, and it was clear blue skies for about 5 years, 11 months, and 12 days.
Yeah, so my comparison about Northumberland wasn't negative to Northumberland. It was because Northumberland is a beautiful county, by the way. Just in comparison to Western Australia and sunshine.
Yeah, it's just different. I mean, one of the reasons we came back was actually the seasons. You don't get the seasons in WA, not the same way. I mean, WA was brilliant. It was amazing. And the weather forecasting there was superb. It was like you knew what was going to happen to the minute every day. Whereas here, it might change in the next 5 minutes. Who knows?
And we
it's good being home.
So we go back about maybe 16, 17 years now when I was at UK Coaching and you were at British Triathlon as their regional manager?
Yes. 2004?
Yeah.
2004 maybe? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. A long time. It seems a long time ago now. When we used to meet regularly at McDonald's.
Yeah, we ran a lot of mentoring programs and we did a lot of work around obviously coach education, coach development as well. So you've taken that and you went freelance probably around a similar time that I went freelance as well in terms of working with people. Do you want to just tell everybody actually what you do? Because we just introduced you as Paul Jones and no relation to Howard Jones, by the way, who is also an 80s singer who I quite like.
Yeah, and I'm not the Paul Jones that can sing and dance from Manfred Mann either. But yeah, so I now do, I'm a triathlon coach, been involved in triathlon since 2004 when I started working for British Triathlon, and very passionate about the sport. My company is FRL Triathlon Coaching, do a lot of coaching with athletes online, also do training camps and weekend training stuff away, delivering skills, and a lot of the philosophies around sort of education and technique and developing core strengths for the sport rather than just smashing out sessions and delivering sessions.
Fab, and I thought you'd be a really good person to catch up with in this month of education because one, you have a business, which is great. So we'll talk a little bit about your business. Two, you educate, and as a coach educator, but also an educator of athletes, that is something that you do. And three, it's in the world of sport, which is triathlon. So that covers the remit of everything that GFIS National Solutions does. So tell me a little bit more about why you started the business up and what your company looks like from a business point of view and how is it coping during this pandemic that we're in right now?
So FRL came about originally just because I was enjoying coaching, and it sort of grew off the side of a club that we had formed, and we had some athletes locally, and it sort of built up from there. And then when I was coaching in the Northeast before I went to Australia, just started delivering training camps, just sort of grown up a bit of a client bank and that sort of stuff. And it was from there that the business side of it sort of grew. And then I got into working with an online provider in terms of training diary and stuff, which is Training Peaks. And it's just kind of grown from there. Then moved it to Australia. But because everything was online, we sort of just carried on. And kept it going and found new clients, and those new clients in Australia were brilliant, and we built up a training group in Australia that then formed a club. The club then grew and is still going, and I've just looked at my phone and there's like five messages there from the club asking me questions, but there's also then came back to England, and Australia was very different in terms of how athletes react to coaches and needing a coach to the UK, and then come back to England this year. really got stuck in, came back with a bit of a plan, with a business plan on how I was going to do it. Got stuck into that plan and have sort of followed that through. Build up an even bigger client bank, and I have more Australian athletes than I had when I was in Australia. And then it's kind of grown from there, and it was just setting up beautifully in February, March this year. We did the training camps in Mallorca, which took something like 18 months to set up with Nirvana Travel, and very, very experienced travel group. And we managed to get through some of those, and then lockdown happened. And I thought everything was going to grind to a halt, and I was actually quite stressed and worried and that sort of stuff. But then, because everything was online, you went through that sort of phase where athletes will lose their motivation, struggle a little bit, not sure what they're going to do. Are their races going to happen? And then as they're sort of coming out through that trough and coming up the other side, and starting to see, well, actually races will happen at some point. We don't know when. A lot of athletes have sort of maintained their coaching, and therefore we just kept going. But what we've done is alter the training slightly. So it's slightly less focused, more about staying fit, more about enjoying the sport, more about getting themselves fit, putting themselves into the best possible position so that when there's a green flag and we can go, and go racing, those athletes are going to be in the best position they can be in to go on and do other stuff. And then also from a business point of view, I've been doing some other little projects that I thought about doing but never actually got around to them. So set up a little organization called PK Triathlon, which is working with another coach and delivering podcasts, but we've also got plans to deliver other stuff locally and building up partnerships, working with other partners to deliver other bits and bobs. And it's actually sort of been quite fun and enlightening to sort of try and do that in this environment where we can't just go and meet someone for a coffee and say, how about doing this? You now have to come up with a slightly different way of doing it. But yeah, it's been really fun, but it's also been quite challenging and also a little bit different. So that's been quite motivating for me. And I think it's also been motivating for the athletes. So we've done things like online sessions, which isn't the same as delivering it locally and delivering it in a group, but it's better than nothing. And it's suboptimal because you can't actually see all the athletes all the time. But actually creating that social environment, that environment where people can actually engage and talk and chat and have a laugh and take the mick out of each other as they're doing group training sessions, that's actually been really, really important. So lots going on really.
But I'm just thinking, isn't that what good coaches really do, though? They adapt their communication style to the environment, which we're in a different environment now, so we have to differentiate between our athletes and our communication styles on that. But also in terms of how do we build environments in order to make them more performance related. So I think good coaches do this on a day-to-day basis. When you're in a situation like COVID-19, you just adapt again. There's no difference. It's just a different way of doing things, which I think is good. Dead interested in the whole culture thing with Australia, by the way. We've got a guy called Ali Addison who is a hockey coach. He's from Tasmania. He's over here in England at the moment working for Ipswich School. We got really deep in terms of his philosophy as an Australian, and also how he's brought that kind of concept over here as well. And I've spent a lot of time in Australia working, but also my godparents live just outside of Engadine. It's a brilliant country. Apart from the sunshine, it's a brilliant country just to be around anyway, especially in the world of sport. Tell me some of the cultural differences that you found when you're over there. And I'm really keen to find out what you've learned from your time over there and what you brought back with you.
I think one of the biggest things I've learned is to back yourself as a coach. I mean, when I went over there, I went over there as a British Triathlon level 3 coach, and with plenty of experience. And Western Australia might be a little bit different to other parts of Australia in that sense. But because they're all different states, have their own slightly different cultures and different groups and how people interact. I loved coaching in Western Australia. I really loved some of the engagement with some of the coaches around the sport. I actually got really fortunately was able to do my performance coaching course in Australia, and I got to say that taught me so much. And it was all about engaging with different people and perhaps changing the philosophy a little bit from rather being sort of if you went back 15 years, it was all about the coach and the athletes came to the coach, whereas now it should very much about the athlete and building the support network around that athlete and strengthening that network where necessary. So, if you bring in a nutritionist, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not going to be as good as them at whatever advice they give them. So you have to sort of trust that partnership and you have to build those partnerships. And I learned that quite quickly in Australia. It was just a different attitude in terms of coaching. And obviously the sunshine was always there. So you were always outside. There was always, you were very, very rarely going to have the facility closed due to the weather unless it was lightning. In which case you didn't want to be anywhere near the 50-meter swimming pool anyway. But yeah, it was just slightly different. I kept to my philosophy, which was very much, has always been around consistent, sustainable and balanced training with the right recovery and the right nutrition and supported with various other bits and bobs, including strength and conditioning and stuff for triathletes. And that worked really, really well and actually brought me quite a lot of success in Western Australia in terms of, kids qualifying for state teams and people achieving qualification for Hawaii in Ironman and winning state titles and all sorts of stuff. So it was a brilliant experience, challenging at times, very challenging. I love the way that there's a lot of camaraderie between the coaches, but there's also quite a lot of competition between the coaches. And that was quite challenging. I'd not really had to face that before. And certainly since coming back, it's felt a lot more like a coaching network and everybody sort of talks to each other and engages with each other a little bit more in England. And it's a little bit easier going, but I think that might be because it's home here. And therefore I was the stranger in Australia and breaking down some of those barriers was challenging.
And we're probably a little bit smaller as well.
Yeah.
Especially
but we say, I was in Perth, Western Australia, and what's that, 2 million people in Western Australia, and something like a 1.9 million of them live in sort of the Perth area, and the rest are sort of scattered far and wide over an area as big as Europe. So it's just different. And if you think about, if I try and put that into perspective, say size of Perth, it's probably about the same size as Newcastle and Sunderland.
Yeah.
Without then having Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, go north, you go Edinburgh, Glasgow. It's just different, and it's just a different world. And towards the end, I felt a little bit isolated, not from a coaching point of view, but more, well, partly from a coaching point of view, but mainly from just the world as a generalization, and wanted to come back to England, back to Europe, and be able to deliver the things I want to do, which is, I love coaching in different parts of the world, but I felt a little bit trapped in Western Australia and wasn't going to get out if we'd stayed there too much longer. So I wanted to come home. I wanted to deliver training camps in Europe. I wanted to build up, just work slightly differently.
I'm glad you said that we should be putting the athlete first, because all of the top coaches that I've had the pleasure of working with over the last 400 years that I've been alive, they've always done that.
You only had your 50th birthday in January.
Yeah, it was maybe 450th, maybe. I don't know.
It
feels like that, Paul, at some stage. But yeah, putting the athlete first and building the environment is something that I've always been passionate about. We have to get the right connection between coach and an athlete, whatever sport it is. But we have to get that personality connection, and that's not a sport thing. So knowing your athlete, knowing their personality, knowing their emotional intelligence, and we've talked about this quite a bit over the years, even when you're in Australia, talking about the fact that a coach needs to be on his A game in order to help an athlete be on their A game. And how do we maintain our emotional intelligence at a high level in order to help the athlete as well? And we've had those chats, and we're still having those chats about the G10 program and how that can possibly help your athletes from a triathlon point of view, from a psychology aspect, in order to enhance their performance as well. So I'm really pleased you said that, because the bad coaches that I see worldwide, it's all about me. The bad coaches, it's all about, look, have you seen this badge that I've got? And this is my logo. And yeah, I'm a member of this society. And by the way, I did this and I did that. That's the bad type of coach. And there's still too many of them around, I think.
Yeah, and I think if you swing it back towards the athlete, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned through coaching and just through, I guess, life really is actually creating those partnerships and having people that you can relate to and organize to. And one of the biggest ones is, as a coach, you're at the top of a food chain. And if you're the coach and you've got an issue as a coach, where do you go if you haven't got those support networks around you? So if you, coaching is stressful. It can be really stressful. It can be horrible at times, because your athletes will always come and go. And that in itself is a challenge, but actually learning that you have to allow them to go and do whatever they're going to do and learn their new experience and get a different experience. Can be emotionally challenging, because as a coach, you put a lot in. I guess it's not like my wife's a GP. It's not like a doctor where you go and see someone for 10 minutes or they'll see you for 10 minutes and then you won't see them again for however long. You build up a daily, weekly, monthly relationship with an athlete, and they become not your mate, but they're getting towards that. And when they go, it's actually a little bit sort of can be quite heartbreaking at times. But yes, to be able to have those networks in place where you can actually have that support. And one of the things that I'm really, really keen on since coming back to the UK was actually developing other coaches underneath me to give them that support. And we're already starting to do that. One of the things we want to do at PK is that. Because I think it's really important that coaches have somewhere that they can go and go, I don't know what to do about this, and not feel intimidated by it and not feel belittled by it or feel stupid about it, because actually those things will come up.
Yeah, and that's definitely from a technical and a tactical point of view in the World Triathlon. And this week we've been talking about a lot of educationists as well, and we talk to teachers and to lecturers. One of the things that they spend a lot of time doing in their world is their own personal CPD for the job, but very little CPD for themselves. So when you were talking about the fact that actually, it's stressful, it's anxious, it's time consuming, well, actually, maybe coaches need some skills around that, because that's the stuff that's going to help them then be closer to their A game to engage the technical and the tactical stuff too. But again, that's certainly a world that is still relatively new in the world of sport. Business people do it all the time. So I do a lot of work with businesses, and from an executive coaching point of view, yeah, great. Sports athletes do it all the time because they have a coach like yourself. But coaches need to have a coach. You need a coach of coaches to help them.
And it's you mentioned athletes there. We talk about sports psychologists or nutritionists or dietitians or physios or strength and conditioning specialists. Coaches don't normally have those attached for themselves. They'll quite happily send their athlete to a sports psychologist. We need to strengthen your mental strength or whatever, but we don't go and do it ourselves. And actually we should. And I think actually it's really important that we do, and we have that place to go as coaches. And I know that when I was in Australia, I had a coach mentor, but one of the biggest things I learned was actually going around different sports and learning from different sports. And when I did my performance coaching course, I had to go around and visit other coaches and elite coaches doing their stuff. And it was really quite enlightening because they're not any different to the level that I was coaching at the time. People and as coaches, they're not any different. They've just got athletes that are going for a slightly higher target, or a more, but they still have those same issues, those same challenges. And I think it's really important that the consistent, the sustainable, and the balanced philosophy that I have for my athletes actually also applies to the coaches, and you have to find a way of managing that.
Find it interesting in terms of you talking about the culture from Australia to England as well. And I did my director of tennis European qualification in Barcelona at a phenomenal academy there, and their mindset was different as coaches. So they were able to, they had better strategies and interventions for learning to switch off, learning to relax, learning to almost have that power charge before they went back on court as well. So they'd worked on that a little bit. And again, that's one of the things which I agree with you there 100%, that coaches need to learn some of those skills in order for them to improve their performance, because they need to be at the top of their game to get that 1% from the athletes. And the higher you go up the coaching ladder, the higher the athletes that you work with, it's the smaller margins, isn't it? And if you've only had 5 hours sleep, or you had a really crappy breakfast where you just grabbed a coffee on the run, which we all do, by the way, including me, that's not going to be close to your best, is it?
No, and I was actually talking to my daughter about this last night, ironically, and sort of saying, as a coach, I have good days and bad days, and particularly in the current environment where you have a good day and then you might have 3 bad days, and it's about productivity and mental strength. But when I was talking to my daughter, I was saying that actually, when I have a bad day and I'm delivering a coach session somewhere, you can tell. And she said, well, how? And I said, well, that's the right answer. But the second thing is, I said, there's a way just before the session starts. If I'm on a bad day, I'm actually bouncing around, trying to get my energy up, almost like a boxer standing in the ring, sort of dancing around. So if you see me doing that, be nice to me that day. But actually, it's just about sort of lifting myself and knowing that I want to deliver at the best that I can. And I can do that with energy, but I can't do that if I'm sort of, I'm on a bad day, I can't be bothered. You can't walk onto the pool deck doing that. You've actually got to be up and ready. And it doesn't matter what the athlete's state of mind is, you've got to be ready to deliver. So yeah, it's quite interesting. It was quite a funny conversation, but yeah. Yeah,
we were also talking as well earlier before regarding awareness. And I'm going to just say people in general. Some people in general have really poor awareness of what's going on. So the fact that on a bad day, you need to have that little bounce in order to get yourself going a little bit. I see so many people in the establishments that I work with, and they're walking around, their heads down, their body language is horrific, their pitch and tone is all over the place. And then you go, are you having a bad day? And they go, no, I'm having a really good day. And you go, well, maybe you want to tell your face that, because actually it looks like you're having a really bad day and everybody else is picking up on that. So no matter what comes out of your mouth, all I'm hearing is, I'm having a bad day, I'm hating the world right now, because that's all that you're giving across to me.
Yeah, and but it's true, and athletes or people will pick up on that. And I'll tell you what, kids will pick up on it quicker than the adults. So if you're coaching kids, they will run circles around you if you're not coming in there ready to face them. Yeah. But yeah, it can be very challenging coaching. It can be extremely rewarding, and probably not in the way that you think. So it's not the medals, it's not the winning. Actually, for me, it's all about the process. And it's if you've seen an athlete nail everything all the way through and then had the best performance that they can have, it doesn't matter what the result is. That's the best performance, and that's the reward. And if they followed that process and you've given them that process, that's the reward for me.
And there's certainly a misconception regarding process and outcome, because the rest of the world will judge us on outcome. But we all know that if we get the processes right, and in the world of sport, the more we can get the process right, the more the outcome will be more in our favor. We can't control the outcome, especially in the world of sport. So for example, your sport, processes could be absolutely nailed. You blow a tire, go on the bend, slide, break your leg, done, out of a major champs. can't do anything about that. That's an uncontrollable. That's something that you can't manufacture and train for. You've just got to ride that one out. Pardon the pun there, riding out. But everything else, processes, get them in place. It gives you a better chance.
Well, it's simpler than that as well. You know, actually, if you're an athlete training to do a particular race and you want to have the best performance that you can on any particular day, then you follow that process all the way through. If in my sport, I say, you know, 10 Jan Frodenos turn up at your start line, there's a very good chance you're not going to win, because you know, you can't go into that thinking you're going to win. You've got to be 10 of the best of the world to do that. But what you can do is have the best performance that you can possibly have. So by ticking off that process, by nailing everything, by nailing nutrition, strength and conditioning, rest and recovery, your training sessions themselves, by practicing your little race day processes or whatever it is, if you can nail all that, you'll have your best result, and the result will be the result. There's nothing else you can say. It'll be what it is. Just make sure you get to the start on time.
Yeah, really good book by Bill Walsh, American football coach, which just says let the winning take care of itself. Because you know, all you can do is the things that you can do. If somebody's better than you on the day, well done them. You need to, you know, go back and maybe work a little bit harder on some things, but well done them. Maybe the referee makes a bad decision. Well, you can't control that. So let's just be the best you, or the best team, or the best process person that you can possibly be, and see what happens.
Absolutely.
There's no difference between coaching, by the way, and being a dad and being a business person, or being a teacher, because actually you're going to have bad days, and you just have to learn to let them ones go, and then try to be a little bit better the next day. But while we're talking about process, Paul, I want to kind of give you a little bit of a hats off, because I have done a triathlon. As you know, I did the Anik triathlon.
Actually, you did, yes. That was a while ago.
And there's two really important pieces of coaching information which I learned then. First of all, because you lent me your bike, because the last time I'd had a bike previously was, I think it was either my Rally Ultra Burner. I think it was the Rally Ultra Burner, by the way. So I hadn't had a bike. So the first thing I got on, and you went, "Are you going to change the seat position?" And I was going, "Do I need to change the seat position?" And you're like, "Yeah, that'd be a good idea, by the way."
I remember this now, yeah.
And you need to wear some bike shorts. I was like, "Oh, okay, fab, thanks for that." And then I said, "Right, Paul, what do I do with these things?" And you're like, "Graham, they're the gears. It's a good idea to change the gears." But I think I went around the whole course in the same gear.
I do remember that race. I think that was the first ever Anik try. If it wasn't, it was the second. And yeah, it was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I think.
Yeah, I brought a little team up from UK Coaching, and we
yeah.
I think it was about 5 or 6 of us, and we all ended. And what was really strange that day for me is that I can run. I'm okay. I'm a tennis player, so I can run a little bit. I can ride a bike, and I scuba dive, and I love the water, so I swim okay. But when you put them together, there's some weird stuff that goes on with your body in terms of the transitions, isn't there?
Yeah, you there's we have a saying, when athletes go from the bike to the run, particularly, is the big one, and that's your welcome to triathlon moment, because you get off the bike and try and run, and your legs just don't want to do what they should do, and it just feels really weird. You can get a little bit weird going from swimming to cycling, because you've been horizontal and then you go vertical, but that tends to be more of a very individual thing. But yeah, I do remember your facial expression coming off the bike and starting the run.
Why are my legs going that way?
Yes,
I need to go that way. My leg. It's like, yeah, it's something that I've never experienced before, apart from maybe when I've had a few extra beers down at the pub and I've had to walk home with the Chinese.
I would imagine, notice my words, I would imagine it's a very similar feeling.
Yeah, it is. Paul, listen, I love talking about coaches with you. I love the fact that as a coach, our conversations have always been about how do you make yourself better, because that the better that you can be, the more you can pass that knowledge on, and that is about education. And also the introduction into the world of triathlon for me was something completely new. And at the time, I don't know whether you remember, but I think I'd had my my second shoulder up, and I was going through that mental phase of trying to find something that I loved as much as the world of tennis. So I did the Atlantic Triathlon, I did the coast-to-coast bike ride, I did a half marathon, and there's nothing that comes anywhere near my passion for the world of tennis. And I think you're very similar with the world of triathlon. So if you were going to say to somebody out there who's never done a triathlon, first and foremost, you would say you need to have a good coach. Make sure your number and your podcast stuff goes below that, people can look at. Second of all, what top tips in terms of getting people into your sport and finding that passion for triathlon that you obviously have?
Okay, so I'd probably take a step back and say my first question would be, can you swim? But beyond that, I would say go and enjoy it. Would be, if you're just going to go and do an event and take something on, it's got to be for fun. Accept the challenge. There's a number of different events that you can try and do it depending on what level of fitness you're at. But to me, it's about going out and enjoying the sport. And it doesn't matter whether it's triathlon, it's any sport, to be honest, as long as it's not tiddlywinks. But we go and enjoy it, go and have fun. And then I would also say, go and find a local club. Get involved with a local club if you can, or get involved with the local coach. I would stress, if you're beginning the sport and you're not really sure what you want to do, go with the club first, because you'll get that interaction, you get that social interaction. And there's so many clubs around the Northeast. Most of them are set up, but no, it's a brilliant sport. It's a challenging sport. It really does challenge the individual, and I think that's one of its greatest strengths, is you're not reliant on everything else. You can be in control of everything. So go and enjoy it, find a club, and just take it one step at a time. Don't throw yourself in too big too far. Start off with a little sprint race, and then build up slowly.
Cool. Two more questions, and quickly, because I always seem to add one in there. The second one is, from a performance point of view, if you're a performance triathlete right now, apart from the fact that you need to understand your emotional intelligence more, you need to know what your personality traits are like in order to function and communicate better with your coach, but also with your teammates. Top 2 or 3 tips that you would give to try to find that extra percent. What are some really key Paul Jones light bulb moments, golden nuggets? But if I'm a triathlete out there and I don't have necessarily access to you direct, or I'm in a state of shielding, what can I do right now to just add 1% to my ability?
Probably 2 things for most triathletes would be, one is practice your skills. So the basics of practicing going around corners on a bike, practice your transitions, getting on and off the bike. You can save so much time just doing those sort of things. Practice taking your wetsuit on and off if you've got a wetsuit swim coming up. They're simple things that get forgotten, and you can practice them in your house, on your driveway, in your garden. If we're able to get out, you can go to your local car park. You can do them anywhere, but they get forgotten. People learn how to ride fast in a straight line, great, but you can, same with swimming, you can practice your swimming and you get to a certain point, and you can train all winter and improve your swim, and you maybe take 3 or 4 seconds off your swim time by training all winter. And yet, if you mess up a simple thing like transition, you'll lose a minute.
Yeah.
So practice the little things, practice the skills and the training. And then the other thing I would stress to athletes at the moment is, particularly in the current situation, with not being able to swim, or not being able to swim until very recently when we can just start open water swimming. But to be honest, it's very cold at the moment. So my advice at the moment is be really cautious about jumping into a lake because it's freezing. But I would also say work on your strength and conditioning. It's very often a bit that gets neglected. We swim, we cycle, we run. Well, actually, you need to do the strength and conditioning to enable your body to absorb the swimming, the cycling and the running as well.
There's a really good session that we've done with Jared Deacon, who's an ex-Olympian, who's an S&C coach up in Scotland. Maybe worthwhile listening to him. And I know you also work with an S&C coach as well yourself. But yeah, some good tips there, Paul. And my last question is, obviously you've got a difficult situation at the moment where we're in COVID-19. Your wife does work for the NHS as a doctor, so she's out and about a little bit. What are you doing yourself to improve? Because you talked about the fact that you have to be on your A game to help your athletes. What are you doing? Apart from 25 press-ups a day, by the way, which we're doing to raise some awareness for suicide. Maybe you're doing yours a little bit easier than me.
Well, I doubt that, to be honest. I think I've got more upper body to lift up and down every day. But so a couple of things I'm doing. I'm at home a lot of the time with my 3-year-old at the moment, and also a 14-year-old, which is challenging on its own. But I also challenging myself. I'm learning Spanish.
Good.
I've been learning Spanish using an app, and my aim when I first started was to try and do a year straight. I'm on day 352 as we speak. So I've nearly achieved that goal, and I'll make sure I get to that. And then I'm sure I'll set myself another goal of let's do 2 years. And then also keeping physically fit. I'm just trying to, no expectations. I'm not training for anything other than just to keep myself in some sort of reasonable shape. But also I'm fortunate because I can get out and go and ride my bike. And I live in an area where if I go 100 meters outside of my house, I'm into the countryside, which when the roads are very quiet around here, so it's very safe cycling, and I'm lucky to be able to do that. But that's my escape. That's me going out, and all I'm doing is going for a ride. No pressure, no targets. And then finally, I'm also trying to come up with new things for the business. So I mentioned PK Triathlon. I'm working with Kate Charlton from York in Hexham. She's my strength and conditioning coach, and we're working together. Lots of little projects coming out of that, around training weekends and skills weekends and delivering bike skill sessions and that sort of stuff, and filling in some gaps that we know don't exist in existing clubs at the moment, and just doing something a little bit different, really, and just trying to come up with new ideas of how to take the business forward. Also rejigged the website and done a shed load on social media, done some skills videos. Just I have a plan, and then every day the plan gets longer. So yeah, lots of things going on.
Brilliant, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure. For everybody else, please subscribe. Please share it around the world of triathlon as well as all the other sports, because actually coaching is coaching and people are people. And if we can get better, then actually it helps us all. Second thing, I'll make sure Paul's podcast is on the link below. So if you guys haven't seen it or listened to it, because you can't really see your podcast, please click on that. I'm sure there's some really exciting things for you guys to do as well. Apart from that, Paul, thank you very much for your time. You have a great day, and we will speak soon.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Thank you for having me.